I hook up with my boss on a business trip. I had a crush on my boss for many years, but I never told anyone about it. He was charming and bright, and had the ability to command the attention of those in the room simply by being there. However, I have never given myself permission to even consider the possibility, much less admit it to anyone, not even to myself. The boundary between the personal and the professional had always been really distinct, and I didn't want to take any chances with either my professional standing or our working relationship. When I arrived at the office each morning, my heart would be racing because I knew I would see him there. I was content to merely adore him from afar, taking pleasure in sneaking glances at him and cherishing the times when our eyes locked. However, I have never been one to act on my emotions. Then, on a single momentous event, everything was turned upside down. When I arrived at the office, I assumed that it would be much like any other day, but when I heard my boss's voice, I could tell that he was trying to convey a sense of urgency. I could tell that he was both determined and excited by the look in his eyes. He started by mentioning my name and then continued by saying, "There is an important business merger on board, and I need you by my side. For this event, we will be traveling outside of the country." When I thought about what he had said, my heart skipped a beat. My internal state was thrown into a frenzy whenever I considered the possibility of spending an extended amount of time in close quarters with James. I had no idea that this trip would take us on an unexpected adventure, one that would push the boundaries of our professional relationship and disclose hidden realities. I had no idea that this trip would take us on an unexpected journey. The tension in the air was palpable as we boarded the plane to begin our business trip. My boss maintained his usual level of composure, but I couldn't help but notice that something was off about him. He gave off the impression of being more guarded and detached, almost as if he were fighting with something that was going on beneath the surface. I couldn't help but be curious about what was going through his head at that very moment. I questioned him why he was looking so worked up when we arrived at our destination, but he said there was no explanation for it. After that, he showed me my room and then went to his own. The following morning, as we were once again on our way to our meeting, I assured him that we would get through this, no need to be that stressed out, and once again he denied it, that he is being worried out. As the days progressed into nights, we continued to put in long hours of effort to ensure that the merger would be successful. We carefully went through the paperwork, participated in the discussions, and had tough negotiations. The stakes were already high, and the strain was only going to get worse. Amidst all of the mayhem, there were little lulls, simple exchanges that spoke to a more profound bond between the two of them. A light brushing of hands when exchanging files, a smile exchanged over a private joke, or a stare that lingers during a period of silence are all examples of small yet significant interactions. They were understated but conveyed a great deal of meaning. Our relationship underwent a sea shift as a result of this trip because, before it, we never spoke to one another outside of the workplace, but after it, not only did we start speaking outside of the workplace, but also in a friendly manner. After what had been a particularly stressful day, my boss and I found ourselves sitting quietly in a restaurant close to our hotel one evening. The bright lights of the bustling city served as a frame for the atmosphere, and there was a brief period of calm. In the ensuing silence, we sipped our beverages, exhaustion and unspoken words blending together. On that particular day, he was much quieter than necessary, and when finally, my boss broke his silence, his words included a degree of vulnerability that I had never seen in his voice before. He called out my name and added, "I hope you are aware of how much I appreciate your dedication and the hard work you have put in. You have been an extremely important resource for this organization." I was unable to find my voice and could only nod in response as my heart raced in my chest. He inhaled deeply as his eyes met mine and took another breath. "However, I feel it's important for you to understand that there's more to my behavior than first appears. There is more going on beneath the unyielding front that I present to the world. Something I've kept buried for far too long." My stomach lurched forward and my chest tightened as excitement coursed through my veins. My boss admitted, with his voice scarcely raised above a whisper, that he had always been in love with me. "But I've never been brave enough to show it. I've allowed my resentment and my physical distance from you to act as a shield because I'm terrified of what would occur if I let you in." Because of my packed schedule and the fact that I was exhausted, I was taking my time to think about everything that he had just said. While I was doing this, he held my hand and asked me what I thought about what he had just stated. I'm still not sure what came over me or whether my feelings were so intense that I got so near to him and kissed him, and we shared a very long and passionate kiss together. The cafe became our safe haven, an atmosphere that encouraged openness and honesty among us. As we moved in closer, our hands found one another, and the air between us began to fill with a fresh tenderness. We leaned in even further. When we arrived at the hotel, it was time for us to part ways since the next day would be an important one for us. It would be the day that we would merge our companies. However, instead of saying our goodbyes, he grabbed and pushed me inside his room, and then there was a series of kisses, and then we ended up in his bed. I looked at him while I got dressed, and I failed to see any signs of tension on his face. In fact, he was laying there and staring at me with a smile on his face when I looked at him. So I asked him why he was so silent and stressed out the whole day, and he said that he was battling in his mind whether or not he should tell me about his overwhelming feelings for me. It was getting harder to hide from me. I made a note in my head to resign after the merger because I am unable to combine my work and my pleasure, so I smiled as I left his room and went to my own.